In this simulation video, we're going to review what basic ledger preparation should look like on a structure such as a house. This will include how flashing and water-resistant barriers, or WRBs, should be utilized. Before we get started, here's a list of the recommended tools and safety equipment you'll want to have on hand when working with our Evolution steel framing product. Know that all posts must be temporarily braced until fully stabilized and permanently connected with framing or other structural members. For deck frames, this means that all beams, joists, hangers, and any blocking that shores up the structure should be in place before the bracing can be removed. In short, the deck frame should be fully assembled and secured first before bracing is removed from the assembly. Since S-ledgers are what attach the deck to the structure, they wrap around the structure as shown. However, ledgers should not be attached without properly preparing the surface of the structure first, using adequate moisture protection. Understand that the largest reason for deck failures is caused by the deck pulling away from the structure. This is caused by one of two things: improper ledger mounting hardware being used, and improper flashing and weather barriers being installed to help keep moisture out of the structure and off the hardware securing the deck to the structure, which causes decay of the securing hardware or structure. Before adding the ledger, let's take a look at how to prep the surface of the structure by layering flashing and rain barrier materials. This means the siding will need to be removed first, exposing the sheathing and standard moisture barrier that can be found on most structures or homes. This should only require removing a few pieces of siding directly around where the ledger will be installed. As layers of flashing and water-resistant barriers are added, it's best to take the same overlapping approach as how shingles are layered on a roof. The method will mirror that same type of process and begin from the bottom with an overlapping layer added as we go up. So, starting from where the ledger will be placed, the first thing that will be added is the bottom flashing. This should be installed under the ledger and above or overlapping the next piece of siding below the ledger. That way it will allow any water that travels down this far to deflect out past the siding. Next is the primary WRB layer. This needs to be installed to overlap the bottom flashing, and on the upper side, it should be higher than the ledger and upper flashing. Also, if this is not an adhesive type barrier, then the pre-existing house wrap shown would need to be slit, and the upper side of the primary WRB would need to be slid inside the slit in the house wrap material by a few inches. Then it would be installed against the sheathing or plywood material shown here in our example. This way, if moisture runs down the pre-existing house wrap, it will continue to then slide down the primary WRB and then run off the bottom flashing. At this point, we have two options. Either the ledger can be installed or the upper flashing can be installed from a measurement. The ledger will be shown here in the demonstration to make it easier to understand how everything is layered. Once the ledger is installed or its placement has been marked, the upper flashing can be added on top of where the ledger will sit and can be installed on top of the primary WRB. The upper flashing should have a slight downward angle to help turn moisture outwards and keep it from reaching our hardware and the inner material of the structure. Lastly, there will be a secondary water-resistant barrier that will come to rest over the top of the upper flashing. This should be attached on the outside of the house wrap, at a height where a few siding boards will be covering it up once they are reinstalled. Note that this secondary WRB layer in real-world applications will extend out slightly past the upper flashing. The image here is just for demonstration purposes to clearly illustrate the layering process. Altogether, it should be clear how these layers of material, when installed properly, can give the ledger, hardware, and interconnecting structure better protection against moisture. This demonstration is once again just a basic model of how the installation would be performed on a structure such as a house. Applications will vary by structure and sheathing type. Also, be sure to check for any building or local code requirements, as they can vary and they must also be followed. For more information on our steel deck framing products, including where to buy, stop by our website at fortressbp.com/framing. And don't forget to check out our other Evolution steel framing videos as we continue to help our customers steal the show.